This is USVI News, your Virgin Islands connection.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us for USVI News. I'm Emily Matson. We have a number of arrests to report today by Virgin Islands police. We begin with details of a second suspect wanted in connection with a kidnapping and beating who has turned himself in. Virgin Islands police say 37-year-old Lawton Prince is facing multiple charges, including kidnapping and assault. The charges stem from an incident last Monday night when a woman called 911 to report a man was at her home asking for help. He was covered in blood and handcuffed. Lawton turned himself in on Friday. His brother, 34-year-old Larson Prince, was arrested and charged with the incident last week. On St. Croix, police have arrested a woman for assault and child abuse. Police say 21-year-old Anastasia Moreo is facing charges including assault, domestic violence, and child abuse for an incident which happened back on December 11th of 2020. Investigators with the Criminal Investigation Bureau arrested her this week. She's in jail under a $50,000 bond. And police arrest and charge a 17-year-old in connection with a violent armed robbery earlier this year. He is identified as Caden Christian Durand. Virgin Islands police arrested him last week for an armed robbery which happened back on April 19th. Police say the victim was shot and robbed at gunpoint in the area of Kmart Sunny Isles. He's charged as an adult with attempted murder, assault, robbery, and grand larceny. And on St. Thomas, the Economic Crimes Unit arrested a woman for allegedly stealing from her former employer. Khadijah Smith is facing charges including grand larceny and embezzlement. The charges stem from an investigation which started back in August of this year when the St. Thomas Federal Credit Union reported that Smith, who was a former employee, transferred money from members' accounts into her own personal checking account. Members with the U.S. Customs and Border Protection arrested her on St. John on Saturday, and Smith is in jail under a $10,000 bond. As we begin a new week, COVID-19 case counts remain steady. According to the VI Department of Health, there are currently 29 active cases territory-wide, with 16 on St. Croix, 12 active cases on St. Thomas, and just 1 active case on St. John. Over the weekend on St. Croix, the Virgin Islands Department of Public Works started roadside cleanups. Trash and overgrown vegetation has plagued Virgin Islands streets and highways for decades, so the DPW is taking action by beginning a transformative initiative to clear the roadways and beautify the territory, an effort which started this weekend on St. Croix. The commissioner says they've received a lot of calls from residents about the outrageous grass situation on St. Croix, which has only gotten worse because of recent heavy rains. So they met with the roadside contractors to organize this massive campaign to address the issue. Saturday, DPW crews focused its efforts on the Melvin Evans Highway by tackling the grass and brush there and the medians and shoulders. While the roadsides are being cleared, DPW is asking motorists and pedestrians to proceed with caution. This coming weekend, DPW contractors will travel throughout the various neighborhoods to clean up and say this cleaning initiative will continue throughout the rest of this year. Big news today in the fight against type 1 diabetes. A new therapy to delay the onset of the disease has been approved by the U.S. Food and Drug Administration. Here's more on the therapy and how it may help patients.
It's being called an historic moment. For those suffering from type 1 diabetes, the first ever therapy to delay the disease is now FDA approved for patients.
We've never had any treatment to do that, despite testing many different things that have all not worked.
Type 1 diabetes is a genetic disease where a person's pancreas doesn't make insulin or won't make enough. The new monoclonal antibody will be marketed under the brand name Zield. It comes in a single 14-day course of infusions that each last 30 to 60 minutes.
On average, the delay of development of type 1 was 2 years, but there were those that went longer than that. And as we get more and more data, this may prevent the development even longer than 2 years, which is really exciting.
The therapy is thought to work by turning down the body's misdirected attack on its own insulin-producing cells. Protecting those cells may buy patients more time before they become dependent on insulin to manage their condition.
Imagine, a 9-year-old kid with diabetes that has to have their finger pricked multiple times a day and receive multiple insulin injections. Sometimes their parents chasing them around to do this. and now think of not having to do that for 2 whole years.
This therapy is thought to be just the beginning in the fight against type 1 diabetes.
Now, the most common side effects reported in the trial participants were low white blood cells and lymph cells, rash, and headache. The drug company has launched a program called Compass to help families navigate financial challenges in accessing the drug. According to a report from the CDC, the flu is spreading very fast across the U.S. Most of the worst respiratory illnesses remain concentrated in the southern states like Alabama, South Carolina, and Tennessee. However, the flu is starting to ramp up in other areas too, and experts say this type of widespread activity has not been recorded in the U.S. in more than a decade. Young children and older adults are more at risk for complications from viral infections. The Virgin Islands Department of Health is encouraging all those who are 6 months of age or older to get the flu shot. Meantime, an experimental treatment for Alzheimer's disease has shown disappointing results in clinical trials. That's according to new information from the makers of the drug. In today's Health Minute, Mandy Gaither has more on the drug's failures and why some Alzheimer's experts say the data may also bring some good.
In the fight against Alzheimer's disease, it was a promising new drug, but gantenerumab failed to help people at high risk of memory loss from Alzheimer's or those who were in the early stages of the disease, according to data from clinical trials.
We are disappointed, just like I know that families would be.
Gantenerumab is part of a class of injected drugs designed to remove sticky protein pieces called beta amyloid from the brain. A buildup of those pieces is a hallmark of Alzheimer's disease. The drug company says this particular drug appeared to remove less of the protein pieces than expected. Clinical trials showed it didn't significantly improve brain function and memory. The company says based on these results, all studies with this drug will be stopped.
I think there is a silver lining. The drug didn't meet its primary endpoint, and that is disappointing, but it did actually help us understand more about this particular strategy.
And there's still hope for that beta amyloid removal strategy. Maria Carrillo with the Alzheimer's Association says this drug just didn't remove enough to get significant benefit in patients. Right now, there are other beta amyloid reducing drugs being tested.
This is an incredibly exciting time for this particular strategy, but there are so many other strategies coming up right behind it.
For Health Minute, I'm Mandy Gaither.
Another drug called Aduhelm was approved for treatment of Alzheimer's disease by the U.S. FDA over the summer, despite a lack of support from the agency's independent advisors. Low-cost airline Frontier is now offering a more affordable way to travel as often as you'd like. It's an annual pass, all-you-can-fly pass called Go Wild, and it's available for unlimited flights starting in May. It costs $600 right now, but the pass will cost $2,000 regularly. It automatically renews, but pass holders can cancel at any time. It's good for any destination in the U.S. and Puerto Rico. The pass does have caveats, though, so make sure to read the fine print. For example, the pass does not cover taxes, nor bag or seat fees. Also, most major holidays and long weekends are blacked out, and you won't earn frequent flyer miles with the pass.